You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite.
A supporter of Hamas, like you can tell, like the dialogue tree has been tried to reset. It's really hard to reset these conditions, obviously, especially with everyone around you being like, Jesus Christ. To talk this way or think this way. If someone says, hey, by the way, I support Palestine, if your response to I support Palestine is I hope your beeper goes off, which again, you're conflating Hezbollah in Lebanon with Hamas in Gaza, and then clearly that doesn't matter to you. You're also invoking a terrorist attack in which children died, which again, pretty fucking horrifying. And you again are directly targeting a Muslim member of the panel, stating that you not only think that they're a terrorist, but that you hope they don't die anytime soon. Profoundly fucked up on so many levels. And it was called out, rightfully, not only by Mehdi, who shouldn't have to be the only one on the panel calling him out. I mean, other people, you can use your voice, and other people on the panel also called it out. So much so that, again, this, pro-Israel Trump supporter cowarded immediately. He shrunk in place and apologized deeply and profusely multiple times. But that didn't change him becoming a keyboard warrior as soon as he left the panel, and then jumped onto the Twitters to be a real big man with big opinions. Oh, yeah.
If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing.
You're called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. Okay. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. I'm used to it.
Yeah. I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
That's the moment right there, right? And again, something that I think maybe would have been a lot more common if you are amongst other racist family members, other, pro-Zionist family members, or pro-Trump MAGA types who just talk this way normally, and then it just seeped out on live television at that moment in time. And again, referencing, of course, the terrorist attack that Israel committed against the Lebanese people, where they stated that they were distinctly targeting Hezbollah terrorists, but unfortunately a lot of civilians, including healthcare workers and including a small child, died in horrifying ways from that mass terrorist attack. But then, again, referring to simply all Mehdi had to say here was that I'm used to it, I support Palestinians. That's all he said before getting that response.
That's what Republican Ryan Gradusky said to Mehdi Hasan.
Mike, that was a jump scare. Since when did you start this format? Or is this kind of like the TikTok format?
Journalist, while they were having a conversation on CNN about Donald Trump's Nazi-esque rally at Madison Square Garden. And I had to stop what I was doing to make a video about this because I was genuinely shocked to see it. And it's not that I'm surprised to see anti-Arab racism on national television because...
Oh, no, I can play clips for you. There's tons and tons of CNN reporters. I mean, fucking hell. How many politicians who are either Muslim or who have stated that they support Palestinians and the right for Palestinians to exist have been met with, well, they're terrorist sympathizers. Yeah, they're terrorists. Yeah, they're terrorists. I mean, that is very normal. The Islamophobia, the discrimination towards Muslim or Arab Americans, or again, even people who are not Muslim or Arab who say that they support Palestine, usually met with like, oh, so you support terrorism. Oh, so you support the terrorists, right? You see that it's so fucking common. And so I know like there's a lot of liberals who are kind of like shocked at what took place. And it is very shocking, the fact that it's gotten this normalized, where you will have someone on the live panel who can say out loud, like, you're a terrorist and I hope you die. That's the joke, bro. Just a joke. What? You don't think it's funny? No, you can't even make a joke on the panel. And if you think, well, he wasn't joking. That was a clear kind of threat, that's not a joke. I mean, usually jokes don't follow the standard thing of the setup, the punchline, and the profuse apologies when everyone calls you out on your racist death threat. That's usually not the classic joke formula, but it didn't change as soon as like the cameras were off and he went to Twitter to see everyone getting outraged about this, immediately start a whole like, oh, you can't even joke on a CNN panel anymore, and then you can call us all Nazis, but I'm not allowed to say that you're a terrorist and I hope you die. Oh, whatever happened to freedom of speech kind of bullshit.
We've been seeing it all for the past year throughout the genocide, but to see it this explicit is pretty jarring nevertheless. And to make matters worse, he's going to play dumb as well. and ultimately embarrass himself and then apologize half-heartedly towards the end. Let's listen.
You should not.
No, I
Did
said,
you just say
no,
I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. I said, no, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just
Let me-
say I
No,
should
I
be
did
killed?
not.
Hold
What did
on.
you
On live
just say?
TV.
I said I hope
Guys,
you don't.
let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper
beeper
doesn't
doesn't
go
go
off.
Because you said I'm a
Stop
big
that
supporter
right now.
Of the Palestinians.
of Hamas.
Guys, let
I
me
said
stop.
Palestinians.
Are you a supporter
Am I
of
what?
Hamas?
No, of course I'm not.
Palestinians
supporting
are
Hamas.
not.
Then I
Are
apologize.
you a
Ryan.
racist?
So really bad recovery here, by the way. Just attempting. Are you a supporter of Hamas? Like, you can tell, like, the dialogue tree has been tried to reset. It's really hard to reset in these conditions, obviously, especially with everyone around you being like, Jesus Christ, dude, did you just not only imply that he's a terrorist, but then that he could be exploded in a horrifying way? That, like, again, that's pretty fucked up. But then to be like, did you support Hamas? Do you support Hamas? Do you support Hamas? I'd like to know. Do you support Hamas? I saw Matt Lee post about how, you know, obviously, because there are a lot of non-Jewish supporters of Israel. There are a lot of non-Jewish Zionists. There are Christian Zionists. There are Catholic Zionists. This happens to be a Catholic Zionist. And he's like, it's funny how, like, a lot of people within Zionist circles have normalized this degree of dehumanization and racism. And so then when it suddenly spills out, they think the rest of the world is just as racist and extreme as they are. Until all of a sudden, you know, you realize in a circle of people, like, holy shit, wait, I mean, sorry, but you said you support Hamas? He said he supports Hamas, okay? Come on. Well, I mean, again, that vile statement is in relation to Hezbollah and in Lebanon, you know, different organization, different country, but I guess it's all just the same, right? They're all just evil brown people.
And I
Violent
apologize.
person
Then I
inciting
apologize.
violence against
Ryan,
women.
Ryan.
That's disgusting.
That is completely.
No, I apologize.
That
Good
is
job, CNN.
completely
Let's have first
out
block
of
say the
pocket.
Muslim guy
You
should
know
be
that.
blown
Then I
up
apologize.
on
Then I
TV.
apologize.
Don't
Then I
say
apologize.
then I
Wow.
apologize. You literally.
say
I
it.
thought you said
accused
Hamas.
him.
I
You didn't think I said
No,
Hamas.
no,
I
you
said I
didn't.
supported
Yes, I did.
Palestinian
Yes,
rights.
I did.
Why? Because when you hear
What's funny
Palestinian,
is
you
Rudy
hear Hamas.
Giuliani said this
No,
yesterday,
because-
so you're a great guest to
Listen,
be here
All
to
right,
defend
I
Rudy
told
Giuliani.
myself
Give me
I
one-
wasn't going to
give me-
entertain
give me one
nonsense
second.
today, and so at this point,
This is what we're in
I
now.
can't
This
do
is America in
Here's what
2024.
I will say.
Forget the
Here's what
racism.
That's right.
It's I should
That's
die.
right.
I didn't
That's-
say that. You
that-
You
should
said,
die.
what does beeper mean? Don't give me your
I
fake
did not
ignorance.
say you should
Guys,
die.
Why did you say
guys,
with my
give me-
beeper
give me a-
goes?
What did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper?
So keep in mind how much he's backtracking and backpedaling right now, because as soon as it gets to his statement afterwards, oh boy, you know, the whole like coward in the sheets, but, you know, warrior in the streets or vice versa. Like, as soon as he hits the internet, suddenly it's like, yeah, fucking, I mean, I can just pull up a statement right now. I wanted to juxtapose the two of them. You can stay on CNN if you falsely call every Republican a Nazi and have taken money from Qatar-funded media. Apparently, you can't go on CNN if you make a joke. I'm glad America gets to see what CNN stands for. And, you know, in terms of like the amount of traction he gets on his posts, couple hundred at best for most posts. Some of them have as little as, like, you know, 20 likes, 30 likes. This one goes super viral because immediately, even people who hadn't seen the clip or don't know what he's talking about are suddenly like, whoa, what? He got 1984'd, cancel cultured, what? And he was just pushing back against people calling Republican Nazis. Retweet. Look at that. And now 59,000. That's amazing. What was the joke, bruh? What was the joke? What were you joking about? Because, you know, again, the classic joke setup in terms of, like, you know, there's the setup, delivery, punchline, and then profusely apologizing when you're called out on your racist death threat is not really the standard of jokes. And why is it that you're suddenly, you're so like apologetic on live TV? You're clearly, once you're called out by a group of your peers who are just like, Jesus Christ, you're like, okay, fine. I thought you said that you support Hamas. That is what you said, right? No, that's anywhere clear to what he said. But again, not a really good save.
So
I
what did
said-
you mean?
What did you mean by the
No,
beeper?
no, 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 no,
No, you didn't. You said, I hope your
Listen,
beeper
but
doesn't go off.
Ryan,
Abby,
stop
I'm
talking.
At least
sorry.
have the guts to
I'm
support your
so
racist
sorry.
comment.
Hang
I'm
on.
so sorry.
See, I agree so much with that statement. Because right now we're at a time where a lot of right-wing Republicans, far-right individuals, and Zionist supporters of genocide and ethnic cleansing are consistently using the, hey, it's just a prank, bro. It's just a joke. Holy shit, you guys can't take jokes. What? A comedian, a roast comedian, goes in front of a giant rally and talks about how Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. It's a joke, bro. These are jokes. And in this case, it's like, what's the joke here? You're a terrorist and I hope you die? The joke? So he has a right to be like, that's fucked up. And like, you can't just hide behind the veil of, well, no, it's, bro, just joking.
Bring it back.
This is why yesterday's rally was disgusting.
Don't call us Nazis, but I'm going to threaten the brown guy as a terrorist and kill him.
Because I didn't ever say Donald Trump was Hitler. Man. But do you know who stood on a stage yesterday and said, I want to come to the Nazi rally? I don't have to make up words and call you something. You're saying it for yourself. And what you just said
Kamala
right
Harris
here,
is a pimp.
Apologize, but I will tell you, I don't accept that apology, and you didn't even say it to me.
I didn't say it to
That was
you.
disgusting. But I can be offended when you don't even say it to me. I'm not Puerto Rican, but I was offended by what he said yesterday. And I'm offended that the former president and potentially future president would allow it and go for 12 hours and not say, I don't care. Because you know what? When Kamala Harris put out statements about switching up opinions, it wasn't good enough for Republicans.
Why are you looking at me?
Because you said it.
Why don't you take this back?
So the excuse was, oh, I thought that
Double jump scare. I don't know if I like this new format. I'm like, whoa, God, Mike, I love you. I'm just not expecting it. It just comes out of nowhere. Yes, I agree. Go off, Queen. Incredible. You know, I agree with all the statements. Again, it's that thing where like no one is canceling you and trying to take away your free speech because you're a comedian and you do roast comedy and you people can call out your comedy though. If someone's like, hey, your comedy sucks. Well, hey, you canceling me? No, I'm saying it sucks. It wasn't funny. It's racist. Your comedy is racist. You're a racist comedian. That was a racist joke. I know it's a joke. I get that. It's a joke. Fine. Even though in this case, I think that was just kind of like, you know, not even a thinly veiled threat. But like in the case of, you know, Kill Tony and his entire routine. Yeah, no, I get that he's doing stand-up. He was bombing. It was really bad. He was doing terrible at what should be a very receptive stadium full of people. But, you know, he did his routine. And now afterwards, there's that whole like, I will never apologize. You don't need to. All right. The effects of your work are just speaking for themselves. There are a lot of proud Puerto Ricans and people who hate racism and racists, and all of them are just kind of like, so this is what y'all are about. No, it's jokes, though. All of these, they're jokes.
you said you support Hamas, not Palestinians. Right. You thought that he said he supports Hamas. Because of course you did. See, to these people, when they hear Palestinian, they automatically hear Hamas because they're unable to differentiate between Palestinians and Hamas, because the way that they tell themselves that blowing up Palestinian women and children is acceptable is to just say they're all Hamas. So that's kind of how they rationalize it, and that's how they are able to live with themselves, basically, for supporting this genocide. But then he didn't even understand what he was saying, because the reference to the pager thing was Hezbollah, not Hamas. But to them, it doesn't matter. All Arabs are the same, and they're all subhuman, according to these folks. Now, Abby Phillips of CNN, to her credit, did tell him to stop talking, and then she later issued this apology on air after that shitstorm ensued.
We're back here, and before we get started, I want to just address.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mike is very cute. I'm just saying that it's like I didn't know that it's a new format. Okay, I'm getting used to it. I fear change, like all humans. We fear change. Okay, it's not the normal Mike report that I'm used to watching.
That's what happened in the last segment. And first, I want to apologize to Mehdi Hasan for what was said at this table. It was completely unacceptable. When we get this discussion started, you'll see that Ryan is not at the table. There is a line that was crossed there, and it's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to us at this network. We want discussion. We want people who disagree with each other to talk to each other. But when you cross the line of a complete lack of civility, that is not going to happen here on this.
So I just want to pull up some examples. It's important to remember Abby Phillips was one of the first, if not the first, Western on-air host to repeat uncritically IDF's insane story of 40 beheaded babies, and I do not believe she's ever walked it back, apologized, or faced any consequence when it was then disproven. Abby Phillips has no problem with Islamophobia as long as it's polite.
Joining me now is Asna Tabassum, University of Southern California, valedictorian. Asna, thank you very much for joining us. My understanding is that this week you met with university officials to address security concerns. What happened in that meeting? Did they tell you about any specific threats?
No, actually, they did not tell me about any specific threats, and my request to ask for the details of such threats were denied. And so it leads me to consider whether the decision to revoke my speech was made on the basis of safety alone.
Do you have a sense of whether there was a concern for your safety or perhaps the safety of other students?
The safety, I think, is a priority for all students, including myself. And so it was made unclear to me because I received no details about what specifically the security threats were directed to.
So the university has said that this is not a free speech issue. Do you view it that way?
I think there's a nuance here. I think, I expressed an opinion through a link that I had on my Instagram. The hate and the vitriol that was unleashed towards me after, I think, was part of the reason that the university caved in. And so when it comes to being a free speech issue, sure, maybe my valedictory speech is a privilege, and it's a privilege I do not take lightly, and other students and evidently people around the world do not take lightly. But at the end of the day, my views, the views that I have expressed and the views that USC has instilled within me as well, were stifled and were subject to hate.
You just brought up a link that was posted through your social media page. I do want to ask you about that since you did bring it up. One of the items in this post calls for the complete abolishment of Israel. Is that a position that you endorse?
If you're asking me if I stand for human rights, if you're asking me if I stand for equality and unequivocal and unconditional right to life for all people, including Palestinians, then I'm not apologetic. I believe in what I believe, and it is because of the people around me that I've met at USC, the classes that I've taken, the professors that I have learned from, that have led me to look at the world in this way. And it's unfortunate that human rights is controversial.
The reason I'm asking is because that's what the link said. It called for the complete abolishment of Israel. Abolishment of Israel was in the actual language. Is that something that you endorse?
So the abolishment of the state of Israel, I'd like to clarify, is the abolishment of an apartheid system. It inherently is a system that subjugates Palestinians as dehumanized, and it subjugates Palestinian life as not worth the same as other human life. So when the link says...
So is that a yes then?
I think a yes or a no would be an injustice to the issue, and I think that any sort of ideological debate or any sort of academic discourse is worth clarification.
So again, these aren't like in good faith conversations, right? It's not. Well, I've brought you on here because I want to clarify and I want to learn more about your positions. That's as a journalist, that's clearly what's important to me. I want to get you on record saying that you are saying out loud that you want to abolish Israel. I want to hear you say it. It's a yes. So yes, the answer is yes.
And worth discussion.
You're in a university.
Can you please trim your nuanced socio-political views down to a soundbite? That's it. Right, and then once you have that soundbite, I mean, it's over. Your entire life. I mean, you were on CNN. You're like, good luck with employers if they Google your name and that shows up, and it's like USC student says that she wants to abolish Israel, implied that she hates all Jewish people or something like that, and then boom. I mean, it's horrifying. This is from Matthew Sheffield. CNN just removed a far-right panelist for a racist remark against progressive commentator Mehdi Hasan. This was the right decision, but as a former TV booker, what happened is part of a much bigger problem. Before going independent, I used to be a producer at The Hill on its Rising program. Like all mainstream media shows, we were constantly trying to have balanced and panel discussions, but we always had a problem. It was very difficult to find Republicans who weren't crazy. Frequently, my colleagues would book right-wing commentators, and as someone who'd come out of the conservative media, I'd often have to review them before they were put on air. More than a few times, people who were alt-right activists were booked before I removed them. Other times, we couldn't find anyone who was actually qualified to talk about the news of the day in a non-frothing manner. We had people offered that had made racist remarks, people who had stalked women, etc. The Republican media, meanwhile, make zero attempts at balance. We also have several commentators who express Christian supremacist ideas, which meant, of course, that they couldn't possibly add anything useful on Israel or Islam. This is what happened to the very long-suffering Abby Phillips tonight. The biggest beneficiaries of the affirmative action in media are Republican commentators. The MSM are desperate to find anyone who can engage in civil dialogue without filibustering or collapsing into bigoted rants. This is why you often see the same Republicans everywhere. Republican elites have a huge quality problem on their side, but they don't care to do anything about it. That's because they've realized engaging in informational hygiene would shrink their very unstable coalition. They've chosen extremism over centrism, and they never get called out on it. Mainstream media needs to stop platforming dishonest and bigoted Republicans. America needs to hear what the far right thinks, but we don't need to hear their bigotry and trolling. Reporters can present these views and their significance. We don't need the bigots. Until CNN and other outlets return to regular standards, they're going to have to keep their right-wing commentators engaging in self-destructive acts. Remember the imploding of Jeffrey Lord, Ed Martin, and Corey Lewandowski. These people keep horribly tarnishing the CNN brand. The hard reality is that Republicans are so far from the center that they cannot engage in civil debate. The viewers would be better served by ending the right-wing food fights. We also don't need fictitious Republicans who lie constantly either. CNN's Republican chief executives clearly are behind their recent Republican affirmative action hires. They supposedly have more right-wing droogs on the air than Republicans will flip away from Fox, but this will never work. For every Fox bot tuning in, they lose two. And closing the loop is Ryan Girdusky. He's a full-on racist and radical Christian supremacist, Catholic supremacist, who has written for racist activist Richard Spencer. He's been running an operation to block Black and LGBTQ+ authors from school curriculums. He should never have been allowed on CNN. Nazi, what the fuck? I'll convert this into an essay, but in the meantime, here's what the current rising conservative host is up to. It's just as disgraceful.
If you truly believe that, would you not be justified in killing him to prevent him from getting into office?
What?
If you truly believe that Trump is going to seize power for eternity, for the rest of his life, and turn America into a fascist dictatorship, what would you stop at to prevent him from getting into office?
Well, I believe.
Now, this isn't unique to the conservative host of Rising, by the way. This is something that I've seen all across conservative media, right-wing social media, the pundit class. They're consistently doing this thing where it's like, hey, you're all calling Trump Hitler. Don't you know that if you call someone Hitler, then people are going to be like, oh, if he's Hitler, I have to take matters into my own hands and I have to kill Hitler. So by doing so, aren't you encouraging people to murder Donald Trump? And it's like, you can't even identify fascism anymore. Don't fall into this trap, by the way. This trap is with intent. You've got a rally with, tons and tons of right-wing GOP speakers who are using terms like poisoning the blood of the nation, the enemy from within, quoting Mein Kampf and shit like that. And if you're like, hey, that quote is from Mein Kampf. Oh, whoa, hold on. If you're saying he quoted Mein Kampf, doesn't that mean people listening to you are going to want to have to kill him because they think he's Hitler and they have to stop Hitler? Meanwhile, they're straight up saying every racist and vile and sexist thing that comes into their brains constantly. In that same rally, Tucker Carlson was like, Kamala Harris is the first Malaysian, Indonesian, low IQ individual to become the president. They're calling her a communist dictator, consistently. They're saying that we cannot surrender to these people, that we have to, liquidate our enemy, all that kind of shit. They are being extremely, extremely violent with their rhetoric. And by the way, the people who are trying to kill Trump are Trump, fucking conservatives. It's like, hey, the call is coming from inside the house. Turns out the people who are violent extremists happen to be on the right. All the statistics show, by the way, in terms of domestic terrorism, it's white supremacist, far right extremists who are the ones committing the domestic terrorism. They're the ones committing these acts. They've been doing it, by the way, to people in the LGBTQ plus community nonstop, based on, again, the instigations that are being done by Matt Walsh and Libs of TikTok. Why isn't that ever brought up? It's like, you have Matt Walsh who is lying on his show, saying they are literally mutilating children. They are cutting the penises off little boys and telling them that they're girls. This has to be stopped. We have to do something about it. Here is the address of the hospital. Here's the emails and the phone numbers of all the doctors and nurses who work there. Do something. Get out there. Do something. They're cutting little boys' dicks off. Get out there and stop it. And then all of a sudden it's like, bomb threat, death threat, bomb threat, death threat. Hey, children's school, bomb threat, death threat, bomb threat, death threat. Hey, person who has a rainbow flag but isn't even LGBTQ plus, just an ally, shot to death. And it's like, hey, the people who you are radicalizing are committing extremist violence. They are being radicalized. This is a reality. This is the world we live in. Stop buying the mythos of, hey, if you call out fascism and fascist rhetoric, then you are making people, you're telling people to go murder Donald Trump. No one is saying that. They're trying to identify the rise of fascism. Don't let this trap be effective.
I believe in democracy, and I think that the voters will stop him, but we have the right to call it out.
But what if they don't?
For what it is. We have the right to call it out for what it is. If he breaks the law, as fascists do, we have a system of government that holds him accountable, checks and balances. But furthermore, if he believes that Kamala Harris is a fascist, let's use your same logic on that
But if
one.
you think that he's going to suspend the Constitution or terminate the Constitution,
Which he said.
then those checks and balances wouldn't exist. So what would you?
Yeah. Oh, again, it's one of the telltale signs of a rising fascist movement is, again, to become extremely violent and defensive over the identification of the fascist movement. That article, by the way, by Amanda Moore in the Turtle Diaries. Last night, CNN had Ryan Girdusky, a pro-Trump political consultant, on a panel discussing Trump's Sunday rally at Madison Square Garden. At one point, fellow panelist Mehdi Hasan started to offer advice. If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing. But Girdusky cut him off and said, telling him that Hasan has been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else on the panel. I'm a supporter of Palestinians, so I'm used to it. Hasan replied. Girdusky quickly replied with, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. CNN has since apologized for bringing Girdusky on, stating that he is banned from appearing on the network. Girdusky previously touted his friendship with J.D. Vance, his work for Project Ohio Values PAC, which helped Vance win the election in 2022. But before Girdusky was so public in his politics, he penned articles for white nationalists and Unite the Right leader Richard Spencer. In 2010, Girdusky wrote 2 pieces for Spencer's alternative right website, Roadmap to Nowhere in November and Whiteout in October, both under his real name. In Whiteout, Girdusky bemoaned the focus of suicide on gay teenagers, saying, quote, no one cares to mention the white middle-class men who take their own lives. Quote, instead, white middle-class men like Frank Ricci can look forward to working hard and being denied equal treatment because of only one reason. He is white, middle-class male. They will have the opportunity to be fired more easily and those of their female and minority counterparts. And if they decide to stand up and take notice of their short-ended stick, they will have the opportunity to be marginalized and be called racist by people like Reverend Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Chris Matthews, and any of the others who seek to remain relevant in the age of Obama. Girdusky included an attribution link to the story about Ricky. The link was sent to a piece from Tacky Magazines written by white supremacist Jared Taylor. At the time these pieces were published, alternative rights listed Peter Brimlow, the founder of the white nationalist organization VDARE, as a senior contributing editor. Paul Gottfried, a far-right academic who has keep mainstream extremist ideas, was also listed. So what you're seeing here is people who used to work directly with a white supremacist publication, who wrote for a white supremacist publication run by a white supremacist, Richard Spencer, and now have tried to definitely normalize a lot of how they appear in mainstream media as simply being a concerned conservative. Because a concerned conservative sounds way better than a fucking white supremacist. And this was the entire purpose of the alt-right movement. I know it's been a long time since, they were very, very popular, and Richard Spencer has fallen from grace amongst a lot of his contemporaries, in large part due to, again, leaked recordings where he is saying extremely Hitler-like shit, talking about, dominating Jewish people and all this other kind of stuff. So people were like, oh shit, he actually is a hardcore white supremacist. And it's like, yes, he is. White supremacists are, in fact, white supremacists. I didn't know if you needed the tiki torches, the people screaming about blood and soil, or saying that Jews will not replace us to remind you of that fact, but they are in fact white supremacists. And so people who worked in the past with white supremacists, the entire alt-right mythos was, we don't succeed if people see us with hoods on our heads. We don't succeed if people see us with swastikas. We don't succeed if people see us as Nazis, because everyone, even normies at this point, know Nazis bad. So we cannot continue to brand ourselves this way. So instead of branding ourselves as neo-Nazis, as KKK members or enthusiasts or anything like that, we need to brand ourselves as an alternative to the right, the alt-right. That's the whole alt-right thing. That's why when you're seeing people in the alt-right movement, be it Lawrence Southern or anyone like that, a lot of what they do is an attempt to rebrand themselves over and over and over and distance themselves from the extremist elements of their past. So they might say, hey, by the way, I'm not a white supremacist, a Nazi or anything like that. I just say it's okay to be white. What's wrong with that statement? Is that statement offensive to you? Did you find that offensive? I mean, hey, Lance, you're white. Is it not okay to be you? What's wrong with that statement? And that's the whole play, right? To try and either hide behind all the irony pilling, to hide behind, oh, it's just a joke, bro, to hide behind the, whoa, what's wrong with all lives matter? Do you not think all lives matter? What's wrong with saying all lives matter? Because you do agree with that, right? All lives matter. Yes, of course I agree in theory with that statement. But in practice, some lives seem to matter more than others. That's the point of Black Lives Matter. And you're trying to discount the Black Lives Matter movement by saying all lives matter. Because now people can ignore the fact that, disproportionately black people are being killed and murdered by the police at a much higher rate than white people. We can suddenly discount that because it's like, hey, by the way, all lives matter, bro. What's wrong? Don't you get it? Josh Marshall says, obviously, this is who Trump is, and this is what Trumpism is, but there's part of this that isn't widely enough known, though it's well known to a lot of reporters, and that is among GOP operatives and staffers under 30 or so, the majority, well, maybe the great majority, had their political awakenings on sites like 4chan, 8chan, various far-right incel and incel-adjacent online communities. It crops up in various ways if you know where to look. It's why DeSantis had those weird, frankly homoerotic campaign videos during the primaries. They're all awash in this world of casual racism, ironic provocation, not just misogyny, but a weird, emotionally stunted kind of misogyny that to normal people isn't just often offensive or weird, but even kind of inexplicable because it's very, very weird. Inside the idiom and self-referential world that is fairly alien to mainstream audiences. Again, I know I'm not saying anything new to Trumpers are weird and racist and sexist and all the rest, but young stappers make up the world of political life. They're not talent or the big names yet, but they're the workforce that makes things happen. And the weirdo 4chan-y world is just deeply, deeply in the DNA. It's not that they're into Trumpism, it's that they largely only know in this space and ideal world that made them decide that they were conservatives or Republicans or whatever association of homeness in the right and far right they have. So, like I said, it's deep, deep in the political DNA. We know that we know in a watch just from watching the current GOP when it comes to the surface in weird ways, but I first realized through various stories over the last 5 or 6 years, usually involving this or outrage or scandal, and over time it's become fairly obvious that lots of these guys had very long histories and online identities in that world. In most cases were political origin stories in that they found their political identities in those online spaces. Maybe it's not surprising that the ones who got their trouble are steeped in a rake or some of those had it in their backgrounds, and the ones that did do like this, it just comes up again and again. If you follow politics, you know that these guys are out there. We've all seen the post-Gamergate world for years, but think people don't put two and two together. A lot of this is where the new generation of GOP staffers and operatives come from. Again, under 30, maybe a touch older, not just in offices or campaign of the crazies, but in those semi-normal folks too. It's just pervasive, and really it's not surprising because it fits with the current politics of the GOP, but it's a bit ominous for the future. If you follow D in politics in the 80s and 90s and aughts, you know pretty well all the big people, the candidates, the powerful operatives, and they've all met on the McGovern campaign. Almost all didn't matter when they were on the right, left of the party. That was the formative experience for a lot of them. In 2036, the GOP is going to be 4chan. Which does not bode well.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood. With additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.